Let's bring in my next guest. She's an esteemed, estimable, very heavily watched in D.C. She's Fox News foreign policy contributor and former State Department official Kiron Skinner. Kiron, your reaction to this peace agreement. By the way, we should point out over 157,000 people have been killed in the war in Afghanistan since 2001. What was your reaction when you heard this?
It, to me, represents the strategy and doctrine of the Trump administration that's been ignored by so much of the media and the elite foreign policy community. The president is attempting to deliver on what he not only campaigned on, but what he has strategized about for a number of years. He has said we shouldn't be in endless wars. He's also understood that it is a stepwise and phased reduction to get us out of those wars. He understands that we have to negotiate and engage with some unsavory actors like the Taliban. But there is now, I think, because of the maximum diplomacy campaign toward Afghanistan that the president has organized both within the country and around the globe, a match in U.S. interests and those of the Afghan people. While the Afghan people want a pluralistic political process, the United States wants to make sure that Afghanistan is a denied territory for global terror that could affect the U.S. Those objectives are coming together, and it means that the United States can begin the process if this violence reduction period works out and negotiations follow, begin the process of reducing our forces while leaving a residual counterterrorism force that is consistent with, I think, what most parties, including the Taliban, would accept. So this is an exceptional moment. We have to be cautiously optimistic, but it's what strategy and doctrine look like when Washington puts it forward. Washington Post reporting that,
national security officials are saying they do not believe a withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan is imminent. Is the Taliban going to knock out the Afghani government once the U.S. draws down the troops?
So that is the million-dollar question, and in fact, there are lots of million-dollar questions associated with what could happen. Many of the naysayers say the Taliban will, the minute the U.S. begins the drawdown, revert to prior behavior. But there are also incentives for the Taliban to be part of the political future that's much more representative for the Afghan people. They even have to make concessions around women's rights. There will be red lines for all sides, but we haven't gotten that far yet. So I would dismiss the elite community that wants to say there's no pathway here, because we have to work with the parties we have.
Kiron, let's switch gears. Reports coming in, big pushback now against the New York Times story that intelligence officials warned House lawmakers that Russia is interfering again to re-elect the president. CNN's Jake Tapper tweeting this story could be overstated, that Russia was helping Trump. In other words, that instead the story could just be it's just Russia meddling again. We also have reports coming in, the Washington Post within the last hour, saying Bernie Sanders has been briefed by intelligence official that Russia's trying to help him get elected.
It's all over the place. And, I wish we could do a very long segment on Russian and international meddling in U.S. and other elections. This has been a problem throughout world history. Whenever there is an election, there are parties outside of the sovereign state who have an interest in the outcome. It is not clear to me that the Russians have an interest in Donald Trump being reelected. The sanctions that the U.S. has put on Russia have been crushing. Our commitment to working with the Central Europeans against Russian meddling in their part of the world, and the clarity with which we have said our interests match with theirs. I don't see this as an effort by the Russians to re-elect Donald Trump or to elect Bernie Sanders. It's standard international behavior.
All right, Kiron Skinner, thank you so much for your insights. Come back soon.